guys, one last video. I've been struck with loads of ideas, and they're all hit. Like my to-do list is now being maxed out, it seems, which is brilliant. And I plan to like get all this stuff done whilst I'm in Atlanta because I have a laptop. Jane's gonna lend me the mic. I'm gonna take the webcam, whatever, and we should be able to whack out some videos whilst I'm there. If I can find somewhere to upload, which I'm sure I must be able to, right? Hopefully the hotel. Who knows? Anyway, very excited about this topic. So I had to procrastinate my work and my packing to do this, but that's great. So social intelligence is going to be the topic, and social intelligence is your ability to navigate environments, social environments, complex social environments and relationships. That's what it is, right? And pretty much everything we're doing in life is to generate an effect. So and the effect can either be positive, negative, or positive, neutral, or negative, right? It can either have no effect at all, generally speaking, or it can have a good effect. It can enhance your life or give you an enriching experience, or it can serve to be a negative experience. And negative experiences, that's not what we strive to get, but usually it's what we get, and then we can improve from. So everything is always kind of positive depending on your perspective, right? Anyway, so it serves that social intelligence is something we should understand, because we're always dealing with in these social environments, right? We're dealing with our teachers at school, our peers, our friends. We're dealing with we're going for that job interview. We're trying to get a raise. We're trying to elevate our position. Maybe allow our peers to respect us more. Maybe to understand the group dynamics so that you can better navigate in there and get more work done more efficiently, or have a better situation within that team of people when you're trying to achieve something. Or maybe it's going to be, for example, a relationship. You're trying to get a better experience with the relationship. And I'm not talking about manipulating your girlfriend to do like weird stuff or something, guys. But what I am saying is that, generally speaking, having this awareness of your own characteristics and how somebody else responds, and trying to just be aware of it, right? Because you will pick up patterns and you will pick up trends. It's just all it is just tuning yourself in to understanding why people work in certain ways. Why do they act in certain ways? And generally over time, because you're deciding now to take this information in, you're going to be generating more automatic behaviors where you understand intrinsically, as time goes on, you get experience how people respond to certain things and what kinds of people some people are. Some people they really take negative things very badly. Some people, it just bounces off of them. Some people have big egos. Some people are quite insecure in some ways and they need encouragement. Other people need the opposite. And so you have to understand what everybody needs and what to try to get the most out of the experience. And there is a brilliant book that I read about this, which is when I first read about it properly, a book called Mastery by Robert Greene. That's Greene with an E at the end. And he uses Benjamin Franklin as a case study. And I don't want to kind of spoil it because generally I'm not going to do it justice. But I can talk about one thing. There's also interesting stuff there about Benjamin Franklin, but this is like one interesting effect, and I think it's used as I looked it up earlier, and it's used actually an example of cognitive dissonance as well, and you're going to understand why as I explain it. So it's called the Benjamin Franklin effect. This is a funny psychology, I think in psychology or phenomenon in psychology whereby essentially if you do a favor for someone who does a favor for someone is much more likely to do a favor for them again, basically, and much more likely to give a favor to somebody than if you had received a favor, essentially. So what happens there is that, let's say you have somebody that, in the case of Benjamin Franklin, it was somebody he was working with, he was in a station above him that he hated, basically, or hated him rather, and he was trying to figure out, how do I get the best out of this situation? So he started doing the guy favors, right? And that generally started to kind of soften things up to an extent whereby it opened up this opportunity for him to actually become friends with this guy who was essentially blocking his progress completely. He was completely blocking his progress in his work environment, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. So, and let's say someone hates you and you hate them. It doesn't really make sense to do favors for them, does it? But it's really interesting because if you look at the bigger picture, being able to reframe that or get over it yourself is going to give you a better result. And one of the reasons why this is so interesting is because generally human beings, they try to rationalize all thoughts. And I'm going to tie this into Counter-Strike, by the way. Human beings try to rationalize a lot of different things. So whenever an action happens, let's say for example, let's say because with the Benjamin Franklin effect, the opposite's also true, right? So this is a good example. So if you, let's say, you do something negative to somebody, or you harm somebody, your brain is more likely to actually rationalize that you hate that person or that you dislike that person, because that is something that makes sense in your brain. And I found a really good quote about this. Actually, can I find the quotes? Actually, I don't think it was about this specifically, but I felt like it was a quote that fits. Ah, yes, here it is. This is a very cool quote. So here it is. A world that can be explained, even with bad reasons, is a familiar world. So it's the idea of rationalizing things that you do in your mind, right? But on the other hand, in a universe suddenly divested of illusions and lights, man feels an alien, a stranger. His exile is without remedy, since he is deprived of the memory of a lost home or the hope of a promised land. This divorce between man and his life, the actor and his setting, is properly the feeling of absurdity. And so the idea there is just that, a world, no matter how fucking retarded it is, as long as there are reasons in your brain, it's gonna feel familiar and okay. It's gonna make sense. The chaos is gonna make sense. Our brain doesn't really like chaotic things. It likes to be able to make sense of stuff. And so then the second part then explains what the opposite is, which is this complete disconnection to reality, where everything is kind of floating without reason and without connection. And that is essentially, properly the feeling of absurdity, right? So this is very interesting because in the game of Counter-Strike, see, here we go. In the game of Counter-Strike, you're going to be in this position where, again, sometimes, for example, you're going to, bad things are going to happen, right? And you're more likely to actually blame somebody else. This is like the blame kind of culture that can arise sometimes. You're more likely to blame somebody else, or you're more likely to dislike somebody that you perceive, that you're harming, or you perceive that as harming you, generally speaking. And that can be through performances. And then that can happen. And then what can happen there is that you can generate a cycle of like negativity. And so this is not really a good thing as far as the social intelligence goes, because again, if we go back to the Benjamin Franklin effect, what you want in this situation is to find a way to actually do that person a favor, right? So, if you're in a matchmaking game and somebody's fucked up or something like that, and or somebody is hating on you, like these are two things that can negatively affect you, right? Or can negatively affect the outcome which you're trying to achieve, which is winning the match. You want to go do a favor for that person. That makes a lot of sense. So you want to help them, or you want to encourage them, or you want to try to create like a positive environment that's going to work there. So I felt like that was quite an interesting side topic, just that idea of cognitive dissonance and the idea that it's all about perspective and perception, and that your brain will rationalize things so that they make sense. So that's something to think about, because you can kind of hack your own biology or psychology. Or I guess biology is not really quite the word, but psychology, you can kind of hack it in a way that you can kind of train your perspective to basically act in the way that you want it to act, so that you get the best results. Okay, so there I use the idea with your teammates or matchmaking or so on and so forth, or for example, just generally speaking, if you're somebody that has haters or whatever, this is a good strategy. Is to treat them, is to treat kindly upon people that are wishing you harm. Actually, that's actually a really good defense. I actually recall a long time ago, Day9 actually had, he would say, like, just always be like really overly polite. And that's actually quite hilarious. If somebody is negatively, if it's being negative towards you or being complete cunt to you or something like that, and you're just super nice to them, that is a hilarious concept. And it's something that, you should think about. Because it's fun, and it generally is good for your mental health. It's good for your mental state of being, and it's good to try to find ways of being that are positive. Now, the next thing which is interesting about social intelligence when it comes to esports is that esports is a very hard place to survive in a lot of senses, because esports is so oversaturated with players who have the hunger to get good, right? So because again, we're taking this perspective that we're a player that wants to get really good, you want to break through the ranks and get into a good team and get the good opportunities. So, and I've touched upon this kind of stuff before, where you need to be aware of your environment, and you need to try to put across, you need to navigate these environments and put across the best perception of yourself, essentially. So, you don't want to be you don't want to get a reputation to be toxic, right? You don't want to get a negative reputation, because that's going to really harm you, and you won't be able to get to the places that you want to get, which is on, maybe a good team. And the other thing as well is that you need to take basically note. I mean, this social intelligence is going to allow you to take a note of, who are the important people in these environments. Who are the leaders, who are the kind of pillars of the community representatives. Where is it most likely that I can, do I need to get to kind of display my skill? How is the best way to do it? Do I have to be someone that's quite outspoken, or will it stand out more that I'm more neutral of a person? You've got to figure all these things out, and I mean, I can't tell you how to do it exactly, because you have to generate this awareness. You have to pick up how it works within the culture, and you have to navigate it, and that's what it's about. So I definitely advise that you read about this kind of stuff. It's very interesting, and I hope you enjoyed this talk. To be honest, well, I hope it made sense, and I'll see you for the next video, and I'll probably be in a bit of a different setting. So cheers for listening, and see you next time.